The silence in courtroom 3B shattered as Judge Judy Sheindlin slammed her hand on the bench. 3 days. You left a 6-year-old alone for 3 days. Her piercing gaze fixed on Ella Morrison, who stood trembling at the podium. This wasn't just another custody battle. It was a case that would expose how a mother's reckless choices endangered her child and forever changed a family's future. Ella Morrison and James Cooper's marriage crumbled 3 years ago, after 8 years together. Their daughter Emily, now 6, became the center of their bitter separation. At first, they managed a cordial co-parenting arrangement. James would have Emily on weekends, while Ella maintained primary custody during the week due to James's demanding work schedule as an emergency room nurse. The first warning signs appeared 6 months into their arrangement. Ella, a real estate agent, started missing Emily's parent-teacher conferences. Her excuse was always the same: "I had an important showing." Then came the late pickups from school, sometimes leaving Emily waiting for over an hour with increasingly concerned teachers. James documented every incident, sensing a troubling pattern emerging. Ella's behavior grew more erratic. She enrolled Emily in 3 different schools within a single semester, claiming each move was necessary for her expanding real estate territory. Emily's teachers noticed the once bubbly child becoming withdrawn. During weekend visits, she clung to James, crying when Sunday evenings approached. The breaking point arrived when Ella began leaving Emily with a rotating cast of unlicensed babysitters she found through social media. One sitter, barely 16, called James in panic when Ella hadn't returned home for 24 hours. James rushed to collect Emily, finding her hungry and unwashed. Still, he followed the custody agreement, hoping Ella would stabilize. Their arrangement maintained this fragile balance until last month. Ella's real estate career was booming. She had just listed 3 luxury properties and was determined to close the sales. Her focus on work intensified, while Emily's needs took a back seat. James noticed Emily arriving for weekend visits in unwashed clothes, sometimes wearing mismatched shoes. She spoke of eating cereal for dinner multiple nights in a row. When confronted, Ella dismissed James's concerns as overprotective paranoia. "She's fine," became her standard response. Kids need to learn independence. This cavalier attitude toward their daughter's well-being widened the gulf between them. James started gathering evidence, preparing for what he hoped wouldn't be necessary: a custody battle. No one expected the situation to escalate as dramatically as it did. Ella's actions would soon force the involvement of law enforcement, child protective services, and ultimately, bring them before Judge Judy Sheindlin in a case that would shock even the veteran family court judge. The next 72 hours would reveal just how far Ella's negligence had gone, and push Judge Judy to deliver one of her most scathing verdicts yet. The incident that shattered any pretense of acceptable parenting happened on a Tuesday. Ella had 3 luxury home showings scheduled back-to-back, including a promising lead on a $2.8 million beachfront property. That morning, she rushed Emily through breakfast, dropped her at school, and headed to her first appointment. At 3:15 p.m., when the final school bell rang, Emily waited at her usual pickup spot. She waited and waited. Hours ticked by. The school secretary tried calling Ella repeatedly, straight to voicemail. They called James, but he was in the middle of a 12-hour hospital shift. Finally, following protocol, the school contacted Ella's listed emergency backup, her sister Angela. But Angela was out of state on business, unaware she was still listed as Emily's emergency contact. With no other options, the school secretary drove Emily home herself. Ella wasn't there. Emily used her key to enter the empty apartment. The secretary left only after Emily assured her that her mom was probably just running late from work. It wasn't the first time, after all. That night, Emily heated up a frozen dinner in the microwave, just as she'd learned to do on previous occasions. She fell asleep watching cartoons on the living room couch, still wearing her school uniform. Wednesday morning came. No Ella. Emily missed school. She ate cereal straight from the box. The apartment's silence was broken only by the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional ping of her mother's unanswered home phone. Thursday afternoon, the neighbor across the hall, Mrs. Rodriguez, noticed Emily's school backpack in the hallway. She knocked on the door, concerned about the unusual silence from an apartment typically filled with a child's chatter. Emily answered, wearing the same clothes from Tuesday, her hair unbrushed, her face tear-stained. Mrs. Rodriguez immediately called the police. When officers arrived, they found Emily hadn't bathed in 3 days. The kitchen counters were littered with empty cereal boxes and microwave dinner containers. Emily's phone calls and texts to her mother had gone unanswered. The 6-year-old had spent hours watching the parking lot from the living room window, waiting for her mother's car to appear. James arrived within minutes of receiving the police call, still in his hospital scrubs. The sight of his daughter, unwashed and frightened, sparked a rage he'd never known. But Emily's need for comfort outweighed his anger. She collapsed into his arms, sobbing, "I thought something bad happened to Mommy." Ella finally returned home Friday morning, entering the apartment as if nothing was amiss. She found James there with 2 police officers and a child services representative. Her explanation? The beachfront property showing had led to an impromptu trip to view the seller's other properties. She'd gotten caught up in the excitement of potential sales. Her phone had died, and she'd forgotten her charger. She didn't think Emily would make such a big deal about it. The officers' body cameras recorded her casual demeanor, her lack of remorse, crucial evidence that would later play before Judge Judy, sealing Ella's fate in the custody hearing that would follow. The family court fell silent as Judge Judy Sheindlin reviewed the case file, her expression darkening with each page turn. Ella Morrison fidgeted at her podium, while James Cooper stood steady at his hospital ID badge still clipped to his shirt after another night shift. The weight of the past 3 days hung heavy in the air. Judge Judy glanced up, her reading glasses perched on the edge of her nose. Her first words cut through the tension. "Ms. Morrison, do you understand the seriousness of what's documented in this report?" Before Ella could respond, Judge Judy continued, "Because from where I sit, I see a pattern of behavior that suggests you don't grasp the basic concept of parental responsibility." The evidence mounted as the proceedings continued. Ella's attorney attempted to paint the 3-day abandonment as an isolated incident, a simple miscommunication blown out of proportion. Judge Judy wasn't having it. She held up a thick folder containing Emily's school records from the past year. 26 absences. 14 late pickups where the school had to call emergency contacts. 3 different schools in 1 semester. Judge Judy's voice rose with each point. "And now you leave your 6-year-old daughter alone for 3 days without so much as a phone call? What exactly were you thinking?" Ella's response came out in a whisper. "Your Honor, I'm a single mother trying to build a successful career. Emily is mature for her age. She knows how to make her own food, and she has my sister's number for emergencies." The courtroom tensed as Judge Judy removed her glasses, her eyes blazing. "Let me make something crystal clear. A 6-year-old child is not mature enough to be left alone for 3 days. A 6-year-old should not have to make her own meals or wonder if her mother will come home. And your sister? She was out of state and had no idea she was still listed as an emergency contact." James's attorney presented printed screenshots of Emily's text messages to her mother during those 3 days. Judge Judy read them aloud. "Mommy, when are you coming home? I'm scared. The milk tastes funny. Please answer me." Each message timestamp showed hours of silence in response. Ella's complexion paled as her text responses were displayed next. "Busy with clients, honey. There's cereal in the cabinet. You'll be fine, you're a big girl." The last message was sent 12 hours after Emily's first desperate text. The child services representative took the stand next, describing the emotional impact on Emily. "When we interviewed Emily, she showed signs of anxiety consistent with abandonment trauma. She's developed habits of hoarding food in her room and becomes extremely distressed when she can't reach a parent by phone." Judge Judy turned her attention to James. "Mr. Cooper, despite working night shifts in the ER, your attendance at Emily's school events is nearly perfect. You've maintained detailed records of every concerning incident. Why didn't you seek custody modification sooner?" James's voice cracked as he responded, "I kept hoping Ella would change. Emily loves her mother, and I didn't want to take that away from her. But after finding my daughter alone, terrified, and unwashed for 3 days, I can't let this continue." The proceedings paused briefly as security personnel handed Judge Judy a sealed envelope, additional evidence that would soon reveal an even more troubling pattern in Ella's behavior. The courtroom air grew thicker with anticipation, while Ella's attorney whispered urgently in her ear. Judge Judy's stern gaze swept across the courtroom as she prepared to open the envelope that would change the direction of this custody battle forever. Judge Judy opened the sealed envelope, her expression hardening as she examined its contents. The evidence inside revealed a disturbing timeline of Ella's activities during the 3 days she'd abandoned Emily. Security camera footage from multiple luxury properties showed her hosting champagne viewings, attending networking events, and celebrating contract signings at upscale restaurants, all while her daughter sat alone in their apartment. The footage painted a stark contrast, Ella raising glasses with potential buyers while Emily ate cold cereal for dinner. Timestamps showed Ella at a beachfront property viewing at exactly 9:47 p.m., the same moment Emily sent a frightened text about strange noises outside her window. Ella's Instagram posts from those 3 days, submitted as evidence, showed her boasting about closing deals and living her best life, without a single mention of her daughter's whereabouts. But the security footage was just the beginning. The envelope contained a detailed report from Emily's therapist, Dr. Patricia Martinez. The report documented concerning behaviors that had emerged over the past year. Emily had started having nightmares about being left alone. She developed a habit of stuffing food into her backpack during lunch at school, afraid there wouldn't be dinner at home. During therapy sessions, she'd drawn pictures of herself alone in a dark house, waiting by a window. Text messages between Ella and her real estate colleagues revealed something even more troubling. She'd been planning this 3-day property tour for weeks. "Can't wait for our coastal property marathon," one message read. "Got a sitter lined up?" a colleague had asked. Ella's response sent shockwaves through the courtroom. "No need. Emily's fine on her own. She's basically a little adult." Judge Judy's voice cut through the murmurs in the courtroom. "Ms. Morrison, these messages were sent 2 weeks before you left Emily alone. This wasn't a spontaneous decision. You deliberately planned to abandon your 6-year-old daughter." The Child Services report came next, detailing the condition of the apartment when they arrived. Empty food containers scattered across the kitchen. Emily's school uniform, worn for 3 straight days. Most telling was her bedroom. She pushed her small dresser against the door at night, attempting to create some sense of security in her solitude. The neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, took the stand next. Her testimony revealed this wasn't the first time she'd heard Emily alone in the apartment. "I'd hear her crying through the walls sometimes, calling for her mom," she stated, wiping tears from her eyes. "I should have called someone sooner. I just didn't know how bad it was." Emily's current teacher, Ms. Thompson, provided documentation of Emily's declining performance at school. Once a bright, engaged student, she'd started falling asleep in class, the result of staying up late waiting for her mother to come home. Her homework came in incomplete, her backpack increasingly filled with snack wrappers and hidden food. But perhaps the most damning evidence came from Ella's own phone records. During the 3 days Emily was alone, Ella had made 47 calls to clients and potential buyers. She'd sent over 200 work-related emails. She'd posted 15 times on social media about her incredible real estate journey. Not once had she answered Emily's calls. Not once had she checked the home security camera she'd installed, which would have shown her daughter's growing distress. Judge Judy held up a final piece of evidence, a hand-drawn card Emily had made in therapy. On it, she'd written in crooked children's handwriting, "I promise to be quieter and better if Mommy stays home sometimes." The sight of the card caused James to lower his head, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Ella's attorney attempted to object, arguing that career dedication shouldn't be confused with parental negligence. Judge Judy's response was swift and severe. "Counsel, there's a Grand Canyon of difference between career dedication and child abandonment. Your client crossed that line the moment she decided her luxury property sales were more important than her daughter's safety and well-being." As the evidence presentation concluded, the weight of Ella's actions hung heavy in the courtroom. But Judge Judy wasn't finished. She had one more piece of evidence to reveal, something that would force Ella to finally confront the true impact of her choices. Ella stood at the podium, her designer blazer no longer projecting the confidence it had at the start of proceedings. Judge Judy's methodical presentation of evidence had stripped away her practiced real estate agent smile, revealing nervous fingers that couldn't stop fidgeting with her gold necklace. "Ms. Morrison," Judge Judy began, her tone measured but severe, "explain to this court why you thought it acceptable to leave your 6-year-old daughter alone while you toured beach properties." Ella's voice wavered as she responded. "Your Honor, I needed to seize a critical business opportunity. These properties represented over $8 million in potential commissions. Emily knows how to microwave food, and she's very independent for her age." Judge Judy's response crackled with controlled fury. "8 million in commissions? Let me tell you what's actually valuable, Ms. Morrison. Your daughter's safety, her sense of security, her trust in her mother. You sacrificed all of that for property tours and champagne celebrations. Ella's composure began to crack. But I was doing it for her future. These sales would have secured her college fund, given her a better life. I grew up with nothing, Your Honor. I promised myself my daughter would have everything I didn't. Everything except a present mother, Judge Judy countered. Everything except dinner with her family. Everything except the basic security of knowing someone would answer when she called for help. Tears started streaming down Ella's face, smearing her carefully applied makeup. I thought I was teaching her to be strong, independent. My mother coddled me, and I struggled to stand on my own feet. I didn't want that for Emily. Judge Judy leaned forward. Ms. Morrison, there's a grand canyon of difference between teaching independence and committing child neglect. Your daughter wasn't learning independence. She was learning abandonment. She was learning that her mother's career mattered more than her safety. The facade finally shattered. Ella's shoulders slumped as she choked out words between sobs. I was afraid of failing. Everyone said I couldn't be a successful single mother. I wanted to prove them wrong. I wanted to be exceptional at everything. Business, parenting, all of it. Instead, Judge Judy stated firmly, you failed at the one job that mattered most, being a mother. Your daughter wasn't asking for exceptional. She was asking for present. She was asking for basic care and attention. Ella's attorney attempted to intervene, but Judge Judy silenced him with a raised hand. Your client needs to hear this. Ms. Morrison, I've seen thousands of custody cases. Parents who struggle with poverty, with illness, with addiction. But what I see in you is something different. A choice. A deliberate choice to prioritize your ego over your child's well-being. The truth of these words seemed to physically impact Ella, who gripped the podium to steady herself. I didn't see it that way. I thought I was building something important. You were tearing something down, Judge Judy corrected. Every time you ignored her calls. Every time you left her alone. Every time you chose a property showing over her school event. You were demolishing your daughter's sense of security, brick by brick. In that moment, something in Ella's expression changed. The first real recognition of the damage she'd caused. She looked across the courtroom at James, who sat with his head bowed, then at the photo of Emily that had been entered into evidence. The image of her daughter, smiling despite everything, seemed to finally break through her wall of justifications. Judge Judy allowed a moment of silence to settle in the courtroom before delivering the speech that would become a turning point in this case. Her voice carried years of experience witnessing the impact of parental choices on children's lives. Ms. Morrison, today we've seen evidence of a child who desperately needed her mother. Not your social media posts about success. Not your luxury property sales. Not your networking events. She needed you, present, available, caring. A 6-year-old girl spent 3 terrifying nights alone because you decided a beach house showing couldn't wait. Ella remained at the podium, tears flowing freely now, her previous defenses completely dismantled. Judge Judy continued, each word measured and purposeful. Your daughter's drawings in therapy show a little girl standing alone at a window. Her school records show a child too tired to concentrate because she stays up waiting for her mother. The food hidden in her backpack tells us about a 6-year-old so afraid of going hungry that she started hoarding meals. This isn't independence, Ms. Morrison. This is trauma. James stood at his podium, his medical scrubs wrinkled from another night shift, as Judge Judy turned to address him. Mr. Cooper, despite working demanding hours saving lives in the emergency room, you've never missed a parent-teacher conference. You maintain detailed records of Emily's medical appointments, school events, and emotional well-being. You've demonstrated what real parental responsibility looks like. The next moments transformed the atmosphere in the courtroom. Ella, her voice barely above a whisper, spoke without prompting. I was wrong. I see it now. I was so focused on proving myself that I lost sight of what Emily really needed. Those text messages, hearing them read aloud. My baby was scared, and I ignored her. Judge Judy's expression softened slightly, recognizing the first genuine moment of understanding she'd seen from Ella. Recognition is the first step, Ms. Morrison. But Emily needs more than recognition. She needs change. Real, consistent, permanent change. Ella nodded, her designer blazer now stained with tears. I'll do anything. I'll sell my real estate license. I'll take any job with regular hours. I can't lose my daughter. Judge Judy's response carried both firmness and a glimmer of hope. This isn't about losing your daughter, Ms. Morrison. This is about becoming the mother she deserves. The question is, are you truly ready to put her needs before your ambitions? This moment marked the crucial turning point, not just in the custody hearing, but in Ella's understanding of motherhood. The silence in the courtroom hung heavy with the weight of transformation, as everyone present witnessed a parent finally confronting the true cost of her choices. Judge Judy straightened her papers, her expression resolute as she prepared to deliver her verdict. The courtroom fell into complete silence. Even the usual shuffle of papers and whispers ceased. Ella and James both stood straight, awaiting the decision that would change their family forever. Based on the overwhelming evidence presented in this court, I am awarding full physical custody of Emily Cooper to her father, James Cooper. Mr. Cooper has demonstrated consistent, responsible parenting despite the demands of his medical career. He has prioritized his daughter's well-being above all else, maintaining detailed records of her development and ensuring her emotional and physical needs are met. Ella's shoulders slumped, but Judge Judy wasn't finished. However, Ms. Morrison, I'm not completely terminating your parental rights. I see today's breakdown as your first step toward genuine understanding. Therefore, I'm establishing a path for you to earn back a role in your daughter's life. Judge Judy outlined the specific requirements. First, you must complete a comprehensive parenting course, not an online program, but an in-person, 12-week intensive course. Second, you will attend weekly therapy sessions, both individual and family counseling with Emily, under Dr. Martinez's supervision. Third, you will maintain stable employment with regular hours that allow you to be present for your daughter. The judge continued, her tone firm but not without compassion. Visitation will begin as supervised sessions, 2 hours twice a week. After 3 months, if Dr. Martinez reports positive progress, we can revisit the duration and supervision requirements. Any missed visits, therapy sessions, or parenting classes will reset the timeline. Turning to James, Judge Judy added, Mr. Cooper, you will facilitate these visits and therapy sessions. Your daughter needs both parents, but she needs them to be healthy, responsible, and present. This arrangement aims to achieve that goal. Ella nodded through her tears, clutching her papers with trembling hands. Judge Judy delivered her final remarks. Ms. Morrison, this verdict isn't meant as punishment. It's an opportunity to rebuild trust with your daughter, to redefine your priorities, and to become the mother she needs. Emily deserves nothing less than your complete commitment to this process. The gavel struck, echoing through the hushed courtroom. Court orders will be drawn up detailing the custody arrangement, visitation schedule, and requirements for rehabilitation of parental rights. We will reconvene in 90 days to evaluate progress. Court is adjourned. 6 months after Judge Judy's verdict, the transformation in Emily's life became evident. James had adjusted his ER shifts to maintain consistency in Emily's routine, working closely with hospital administration to prioritize his daughter's schedule. Emily's room in his apartment bloomed with artwork and school achievements, no longer containing hidden food stashes or pushed furniture against the door. Ella embraced her path to redemption with unexpected dedication. The parenting classes opened her eyes to the deeper meaning of motherhood beyond material provision. Her therapy sessions revealed childhood wounds that had driven her desperate pursuit of success, abandonment issues from her own mother's absence that she'd unintentionally replicated with Emily. The supervised visits started awkwardly, with Emily shy and hesitant. But Ella learned to focus entirely on her daughter during these precious hours, leaving her phone in the car and bringing board games or art supplies instead of material gifts. Dr. Martinez noted Emily's anxiety levels decreasing as Ella proved consistently present and attentive during their time together. James witnessed the gradual rebuilding of trust between mother and daughter. Though initially skeptical, he acknowledged Ella's efforts, particularly when she switched careers to become a school administrative assistant, accepting a significant pay cut in exchange for hours that matched Emily's schedule. The tension between parents softened as they learned to communicate about Emily's needs rather than past grievances. Emily's transformation proved most remarkable. Her teachers reported improved concentration and participation in class. The nightmares decreased, replaced by excited chatter about upcoming visits with both parents. During family therapy sessions, she began expressing her feelings more openly, no longer afraid that her words might drive either parent away. Dr. Martinez's latest report to the court highlighted the family's progress. Emily now demonstrates secure attachment behaviors with both parents. She trusts that her father will remain consistent and that her mother's changes are genuine. The healing process, while ongoing, shows promising long-term potential for all parties involved. Judge Judy's handling of the Morrison-Cooper custody case became a defining moment in family court proceedings. Her verdict demonstrated that custody decisions focus not just on providing shelter and sustenance, but on ensuring children receive the emotional presence they need to thrive. The case touched everyone involved in unexpected ways. The school secretary who drove Emily home that fateful day implemented new emergency contact verification procedures. Mrs. Rodriguez, the neighbor, started a community awareness program about child neglect warning signs. Even Emily's therapy center revised its protocols for identifying and reporting parental absence patterns. Ella's transformation sparked changes in the real estate industry within their community. Several agencies updated their policies about work-life balance and family responsibilities. Her story became a cautionary tale about the true cost of prioritizing career success over parental duties. For James, the experience strengthened his commitment to balancing professional demands with parenting. The hospital where he worked adopted more family-friendly scheduling policies, recognizing that even emergency medicine could accommodate parental responsibilities. But the most profound impact remained with Emily herself. A year after the verdict, she wrote a school essay titled "My Family's Second Chance," describing how both her parents learned to show love differently. Her father through unwavering consistency, her mother through the courage to change. Her words served as a powerful reminder that children need parents who choose to be present, engaged, and emotionally available. The Morrison-Cooper case stood as testimony to Judge Judy's enduring message. Successful parenting isn't measured in financial achievements or career milestones, but in the security and well-being of the children entrusted to our care.